Welcome to another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. You're listening to a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State, featuring writer, poet, and musician Rick Pidcock. Now here's Rick.
Over the past few months, Baptist News Global has been on the ground in multiple cities covering the violence of ICE. We started in Chicago as Mara Richards-Bim was there, and then I interviewed Chicago clergy about what they were experiencing.
I think people don't understand what it's like to be in Chicago right now. Terror. Everything about what is happening feels like it is designed to terrorize people. It feels like we're living in a city under attack by our own government. People are having their cars driven into, they are being shot at, they are being pepperballed and tear gassed in their homes for no other reason except to harass vulnerable Latino people. The only thing that's ever made me feel unsafe here is ICE.
Then Mark Wingfield went to Charlotte to report on ICE activity there.
I am in Charlotte, North Carolina, where this is day 3 of an ICE raid on the city that is terrorizing this North Carolina town. This is unprecedented in what has been seen around here, and I know that word's used a lot. This is where ICE agents are spreading out around the city and plucking people off the streets and swooshing them away to places unknown. What you see behind me is the FBI headquarters, and we've been sitting here watching unmarked cars go in and out of this secure gate. You can see the fence behind me. And we're here because there's a mom who was just brought in here about an hour ago who was detained by ICE, who followed her from a protest site to her home where they asked her to get out of her car and she refused, and they took ammunition and broke her window while her neighbor filmed it. And they hauled her over here. We have an attorney who's been to see her and has reported that the FBI does not want any part of this, but they're stuck with ICE stomping on their territory. And this is the confusion that's all over Charlotte right now, as more than 130 people have been detained in the last 2.5 days here. More later, follow our coverage.
When the violence picked up in Minnesota, leading to the murder of Renee Good, I interviewed Minnesota pastor Martha Bardwell, who was on the scene.
By the time I showed up, ICE agents were starting to leave the scene. There was caution tape all around the perimeter of where Renee Good was shot and killed. Minneapolis police were coming in to secure that perimeter. A lot of neighbors had gathered. Hundreds of neighbors were gathered. People were really angry, really sad, really horrified. This killing comes just over 5 years after George Floyd was murdered on our streets, not far from where this happened. The raw pain of that experience and the distrust of police still that persists because of George Floyd's murder was very much on display.
And over the past week, Mara Richards-Bim has been reporting from Minneapolis.
I'm here in Minneapolis. The last 2 days I've been on ICE patrol. Yesterday I went out with a couple of young men, teenagers actually from Chicago, and they are helping run rapid response groups. So I rode along with them yesterday, and then today I was on my own. It's crazy. This is unlike Chicago. This is unlike anything that anybody I think has experienced in this country yet. I mean, just ICE, Border Patrol, Bovino's back in town here. Just chaos, armed men in masks. I just saw recently that a judge put a stay and is allowing ICE to use tactics against protesters again, which would explain why today, multiple times I came across incidents where ICE had tossed tear gas and other chemicals at protesters. It's crazy. I'm here for the week. More to come. Thanks. It's now time to call this the U.S. occupation of a U.S. city. This is Reverend Mara Richards-Bim. I'm in Minneapolis. It has been a crazy week. I was in Chicago and I experienced what that was like. This is totally different. It's now, I think, time to call this the U.S. occupation of a U.S. city. The level of violence is shocking. And it's violence, contrary to what the Vice President says, it is violence by ICE and Border Patrol. I shared video when I came across a car. There was a smash and grab. Agents smashed a driver's side window, pulled a teenager out of the car, and detained them. Neighbors came out screaming and blowing whistles, trying to stop the violent abduction of this teenager. It's time for news media to stop calling these community members protesters. They're not protesting. They are actually coming out and trying to help their neighbors. The arrogance, the violence of federal agents here in the city is shocking.
But all of this was prior to the murder of Alex Pretti. Here's DHS Secretary Kristi Noem sharing the Trump administration's perspective on what happened.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is blatantly lying about what Alex Pretti did prior to a half dozen ICE officers beating and murdering him. We've all seen the videos by now. Here's Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey's reaction to what he saw.
I just saw a video of more than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents, how many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values? How many times must local and national leaders must plead with you, Donald Trump, to end this operation and recognize that this is not creating safety in our city? As you'll hear from Director Sayer in just a second, we have seen these kinds of operations in other places, in other countries, but not here in America.
According to the videos, Pretti was standing still, holding his cell phone when an ICE agent shoved a woman to the ground and started pepper spraying the people. So Pretti tried to help the woman who was shoved to the ground. Witnesses said his final words were him asking the woman, "Are you okay?" But suddenly, about a half dozen ICE agents swooped in, shoved him to the ground, and started beating him. In a sworn affidavit from a woman who was 5 feet away, the witness said, "The agents pulled the man on the ground. I didn't see him touch any of them. He wasn't even turned toward them. It didn't look like he was trying to resist, just trying to help the woman up. I didn't see him with a gun. They threw him to the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground, and they just started shooting him. They shot him so many times. I don't know why they shot him. He was only helping. I was 5 feet from him, and they just shot him." The video I recorded of what happened accurately depicts the events leading up to the agents shooting him and several minutes afterwards. The video is attached in Exhibit 1. I have read the statement from DHS about what happened, and it is wrong. The man did not approach the agents with a gun. He approached them with a camera. He was just trying to help a woman get up, and they took him to the ground. I feel afraid. Only hours have passed since they shot a man right in front of me, and I don't feel like I can go home because I heard agents were looking for me. I don't know what the agents will do when they find me. I do know that they're not telling the truth about what happened. I've heard that other witnesses might have been arrested and taken to the Whipple building. I am disgusted and gutted at how they are treating my neighbors and my state. I keep alternating between crying and feeling determined. It is important to remember the value of documenting injustice. We show up for the people who need us to bear witness, because it can't just be one group of people bearing the brunt of their tyranny. This is a struggle to protect our freedom and democracy. Those things are on the line. He lost his life for those values. I declare under penalty of perjury that everything I have stated in this document is true and correct. In subsequent video, we've also seen that Pretti's gun, which he had a license to carry, was holstered behind him. But one of the agents took it out of Pretti's holster as they were all beating him, and then they shot him with a dozen bullets while he was unarmed. So there's a violent man assaulting a woman, another man, Pretti, who assists her and asks if she's okay, and then a half dozen other violent men swoop in to beat and murder him. This is quite ironic because Desiring God, which is the Minneapolis-based ministry I've been focusing on this month, that has platformed and promoted such violent men as Doug Wilson, Andy Naselli, and the city's church pastors, one of whom is the local ICE field director, likes to claim that their vision of patriarchy is good for all because it protects women from violent men. In a piece written for Desiring God titled Death to the Patriarchy, Complementarity and the Scandal of Father Rule, Kevin DeYoung wrote, "Patriarchy is inevitable." Then he goes on to add, quote, "We are told that dismantling patriarchy is one of the chief concerns of our time. Surely Voltaire's battle cry, 'Crush the infamy,' is no less suitable for the ancient regime of father rule, except that where patriarchy is already absent, dysfunction and desperation have multiplied. That's because patriarchy, rightly conceived, is not about the subjugation of women as much as it is about the subjugation of the male aggression and male irresponsibility that runs wild when women are forced to be in charge because the men are nowhere to be found. What school or church or city center or rural hamlet is better off when fathers no longer rule, where communities of women and children can no longer depend on men to protect and provide? The result is not freedom and independence. 50 years of social science research confirms what common sense and natural law never forgot. As the men go, so goes the health of families and neighborhoods. The choice is not between patriarchy and enlightened democracy, but between patriarchy and anarchy. You can sand a piece of wood in any direction you like, but the experience will be more enjoyable and the end product more beautiful if you go with the grain. As Goldberg puts it, if a woman believes that it is preferable to have her sex associated with authority and leadership rather than with the creation of life, then she is doomed to perpetual disappointment, unquote. So to those of us who say that patriarchy is about controlling women, DeYoung claims that patriarchy isn't about subjugating women. It's about subjugating male aggression and male irresponsibility. He says the choice is between patriarchy and anarchy, where women aren't protected. Notice how much he dismisses democracy there. But protecting a woman is exactly what Alex Pretti was trying to do. ICE agents who were overcome with male aggression and irresponsibility attacked a woman. So Pretti asked her if she was okay. And then the agents, overcome with male aggression and irresponsibility, murdered him for it. If DeYoung and the Desiring God patriarchs are correct that patriarchy isn't about controlling women, but about protecting them, then they should respond to the murder of Pretti by promoting him for protecting a woman from aggressive, irresponsible men. But Joe Rigney responded by retweeting Eric Teitzel of the Center for Renewing America, who said, quote, "The progressive political machine is in full operation in Minneapolis. Their playbook is obvious. 1. Organize and conspire with the media. 2. Agitate, disrupt, incite, sow chaos. 3. Exploit incidents that result from chaos, e.g. Renee Good, Alex Pretti. 4. Weaponize empathy for political gain. Do you see?" And William Wolf, who hosted the podcast that Naselli and Rigney went on to promote ICE violence, said, quote, "Another foolish man has lost their life trying to obstruct ICE. Here's my reaction. I don't care." Then he added this video.
"I don't care how much they scream. I don't care how much they cry. I don't care how loud they protest. And I don't care how much it costs. And I don't care how many of my fellow American citizens who recklessly impede legitimate law enforcement operations suffer the consequences of their reckless actions. I'd hope it'd be zero. They need to knock it off. I don't care. I want my country back, whatever it takes, no matter how much it costs. And this is what we elected Donald Trump to do."
Wolf also said, "The right needs to understand there's no winning the public opinion fight here. And any Republican whining about the optics is being subversive. There's just winning, period. Bring the full weight of the federal government down on Minnesota. Crush the left. Deport them all. Do that, and the voters will reward you." Remember what DeYoung wrote in his piece for Desiring God? He said, quote, "You can sand a piece of wood in any direction you like, but the experience will be more enjoyable and the end product more beautiful if you go with the grain." So these men don't want to protect women. They want to sand women. And they're telling women that the process of being sanded by the patriarchs will be more enjoyable for them and more beautiful if they let the patriarchs sand them down with the grain. He specifically quotes Goldberg saying, If a woman believes that it is preferable to have her sex associated with authority and leadership rather than with the creation of life, then she is doomed to perpetual disappointment. So, women can't have authority and leadership. Only men. Women have to stay home and get married and have a bunch of babies. That's going with the grain. That's being sanded with the grain, is staying home and having a bunch of babies while only men have authority and leadership. So ICE agents overcome with male aggression and irresponsibility can shove women to the ground, and if another man asks the woman who's been shoved to the ground in the snow if she's okay, then that man gets murdered for it. And John Piper's minions will view it as God answering their prayers. There's a book you can download from Desiring God's website titled Workers for Your Joy, The Call of Christ on Christian Leaders by David Mathis. And who does Mathis point out as such great leaders working for joy? He thanks Joe Rigney. He quotes Doug Wilson as defining true masculinity as gladly assuming your responsibility. He names David Easterwood, the city's church pastor who works for ICE. And then he says, quote, simultaneously with Bethlehem and then City's Church has been the immeasurable influence and encouragement of John Piper. This is why I think we need to start holding Desiring God and John Piper responsible for the fruit of their ministry. Because when we look at the fruit of his ministry, it's male aggression and irresponsibility that is sacralizing and celebrating the violence of ICE on the streets of their city. And that is fueling Trump's attempt to create a civil war. And don't forget, another one of his minions, through Doug Wilson, is Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, who just so happened to write in his book American Crusade, our American Crusade is not about literal swords and our fight is not with guns yet. But to hold these men of Desiring God responsible, we're going to have to stop getting swept up in their branding about glory and joy and satisfaction. And we're going to have to realize that when the bullets fly, they don't actually affirm the man who protected a woman and asked her if she was okay. Instead, they promote the aggressive, irresponsible men who beat and murdered him. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and rate us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll be back with another episode on Thursday.
This has been another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. The episode you've just heard is part of a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State. Be sure to follow BNG daily at baptistnews.com and subscribe to get notifications about future episodes. Baptist News Global is a national nonprofit news service that is independent, free, and faithful. BNG is supported by readers and listeners like you. Learn more at baptistnews.com.
This episode was produced and edited by Mac Bowles of TKG Communications, LLC, Dallas, Texas.